With the yo-ho-ho, it's TaleOfTheToaster. Welcome back to some more thoughts on the Inazuma 11 Ares anime series. We're looking at episode 2 now. In the previous episode we obviously did episode 1 things, met the brand new Raimon team who would be representing the school for the rest of the series to come, and eventually they start their match against Polestar Academy. So episode 2 carries on straight away. And although in episode 1 they got a surprise goal against Polestar Academy with Fire Tornado, which was pretty cool, now's when they start being the first team of an Inazuma match and they start asserting their dominance, as it were. There's a lot of parallels, of course, to the Royal Academy match from Season 1, where you do get that one goal with Fire Tornado just at the end instead of the beginning. And then, other than that, the established number 1 ranked team will seemingly go off on a bit of a tirade. And to create even more similarities, they get the first goal with Death Zone. So pretty much so far, Polestar Academy has been Royal Academy, but again, with new players. We'll have to see how that carries on later into the episode, but for now, that's all we see of the Polestar Academy match before we actually get what I really wanted to see and flashback back to Raimon School and see our new team exploring the sights of Tokyo. It's interesting to note, by the way, we still haven't had an intro song for the season yet. That's not to say it's not coming, because it is, but yeah, the Polestar match basically was our intro for this one, and now the episode kind of starts as we explore Raimon. So we get to the club room and a new character called Regina Molegrave introduces herself alongside all of the other girls in her kind of committee at the school, like the Kyoko Kirigiri voiced one who says, "Well, they stink," and all of them. So yeah, I think this is a good scene. You know, Regina kind of puts the pressure on to say, I manage the clubs, and if you don't live up to our expectations, we can shut you down. But she's not saying that she's going to, just that she wants to watch the match and see if you actually are worthy of the very, very worthy Raimon brand that had just taken down the likes of Royal Academy, Zeus, and won the Football Frontier. So of course you're going to put a bit of pressure on. You can't really hold that against her. She also gives us some useful information in that this guy who's just scored against us with Death Zone is called Elliot Ember. This is a bit of a weird name because he doesn't really have any fire-based moves or tendencies at all. He's not even coloured red. I don't really get the name at all, but there is a fire reference in his Japanese name as well, so it's not the dub's fault. It's just a weird character name all around. But he is described as the demon on the pitch, and he's kind of known for disassembling rookie teams, getting them to disband because he just defeated them so badly, usually by a 10-0 margin and stuff like that. This isn't the first time that Inazuma 11 has had a character like this, but you know, we need one again and it gets things moving. But what happens next is definitely my favourite part of the episode, and that's where we get to meet our actual manager for the Raimon team, Aurelia Dingle. Now, this was a really, really interesting casting choice that I never really expected, but that's because Aurelia is kind of a hidden character in the original trilogy, especially Season 1. She's quite noticeable in the first Inazuma 11 game, where she's Mark Evans' classmate alongside some other dude called Andy. Andy doesn't even have a surname, and I'm not sure when Aurelia got one, but we know now she's called Aurelia Dingle. So she was never in the anime, or at least if she was, it was only a passing background kind of thing. She was never associated with the football club either, but she was associated with Mark Evans, and we know she's a student at Raimon. So I think it's really believable that once Mark Evans is kind of not studying at Raimon for the time being, and the team then won the Football Frontier, she would kind of gain an interest in what her classmate was doing. And now that all the other managers have moved on, Aurelia actually joins the club and becomes a talking character in her own right. And she's a really, really good one. I especially love her voice acting. I don't have the voice actress on hand, actually, but she's done a fantastic job. I think Aurelia sounds great, and she's just a really cheery manager. You know, we've had cheery managers before, but I think Aurelia's kind of the step up, and just a good bit of reaffirmment and actually a familiar character in this era where we've got a brand new Raimon team, but still new character as well because she's never been in the show. But of course, I keep saying that the likes of Mark Evans and the old managers have moved on from the school, but what's actually the explanation for that? Well, Mr. Firewall, the headmaster, kind of goes through this at this point in the episode, but I'll kind of explain it for myself. So basically, all of the previous members of the Raimon team have now become football ambassadors, and they have gone to different schools to try and train them up and make sure everyone across Japan is better at football. That's pretty much the explanation we get in the episode from Mr. Firewall, but the extra details are actually made clearer if you watch the episode called Inazuma 11 Reloaded. I touched on this in my previous thoughts on episode 1, but basically Reloaded was aired only in Japan as a one-off celebration, which basically reanimated the victory over Zeus Junior High from the end of season 1 and then showed how the story would change from that point on. I won't go into too much detail because I do recommend watching the episode anyway if you haven't already, but Mark Evans will take on a Spanish team, so an actual Pro League team from the international world, and yeah, Raimon may be able to beat other teams from Japan, but they cannot handle the world at this stage, and it's a pretty rough experience. It's got some great moves in there, and I love watching the match. But yeah, it puts things back in reality. Mark Evans' team are not world-beating yet, so they must go around their country and make sure that Japan can be world-beating. But that means ditching Raimon, so for now, that's why we've got Backwater Island filling that role instead. To do this, we'll need a new manager, so that's when we're introduced to a guy called Mr. Yi, a Chinese individual with a little pun on mystery as his name. It got a giggle out of me, and I love his design. How will he fare as a coach? Well, for the time being, he's not giving much away. He says he's kind of giving the implication he doesn't know much about football and knows more about kung fu. He gives the team a list of training instructions, which are very basic, just run around the riverbank, drag some tyres, walk around the city. It's not much, so there's a bit of doubt as to how competent this guy actually is, but it's a Mr. Yi. Yeah, you get it, joke. Through these scenes we get to see the new Raimon kit, which looks pretty good. No kit's ever going to match up to the Inazuma National jerseys for me, but you know, that's the thing. Inazuma National's always blue and Raimon's always yellow. And this is definitely one of the better ones, actually. I think I like it more than the kit from the Go series. And then the original's kind of too iconic to argue with. Mr. Yi also introduces us to a brand new concept called the 11 band. And this is one of my favourite ideas that Ares introduces. So it's a little wristband that you'll just clip on while playing or even while training, so Mr. Yi can keep an eye on you and know if you've been slacking off, as it were. But this is kind of used to monitor the player's health in mid-games, and then most importantly, the coach can use it to pass on instructions to the players. We've never had this before. We've had good coaches in Inazuma, but they've only been able to pass on their thoughts at half-time or, you know, kind of corralling someone over to tell them the information. But now the coach can actually give information on the spot, and I think this is the perfect step forward for coaching in Inazuma, so we'll see how Mr. Yi can make use of it. A little thing I do enjoy about Mr. Yi in these scenes as well is that he just puts a really detailed mobile phone in front of your face. Just another reminder that, yeah, this is a 2018 anime now and not the 2009 one that we're all used to. So the Raimon team do their little training sequence. We don't see much of it, but I think it's also pointed out around about here that Raimon is still unsponsored. Mr. Firewall mentioned it earlier, in fact. And that's crazy. Like, I get Backwater Island not being sponsored, but Raimon Junior High? That's like Lewis Hamilton being unsponsored. How do you even manage this? So the Raimon team finish training for the day and then they return home. But where is home for the Raimon players? This is their first day in Tokyo. Well, they drop a real surprise on us here. This is probably my other highlight of the episode, in that the Raimon team will actually be living at Windsor Manor. And this is a really unexpected reference to the Inazuma 11 Go series. It's obviously very hard to reference Inazuma 11 Go within Ares because Go takes place 10 years later and all of the football players from that team will be about 4 years old at this point. So there's not much you can do in referencing Go, but actually referencing a location by the riverside where Arian Sherwind would later be living throughout the events of Go. This is a brilliant idea, and it houses the whole team before it has the residents that we'd come to know. And even a Go exclusive character called Babs will be their landlord, as it were, and cooking for them. The only weird bit is that she has a different name to usual. In the Go games she was dubbed as Bobbine Apples. A bit of a weird name, I admit. It would be hard to make that work on the show, but they just changed Bobbine to Barbara, and then we call her Babs for the rest of the season. So it's a little thing, but she keeps the same name in Japanese, so we definitely know it's the same person. But it's just brilliant to have a little cameo like that. There'll be plenty of Season 1 references throughout the season, while Season 2 and 3 can kind of have parallel references. Those seasons aren't going to happen anymore, but you can still reference characters and locations and such. But yeah, this is a little Go reference. But that's it for our little flashbacks now. Now we have to go back to the actual match against Polestar Academy. And usually, a football match is meant to be the highlight of the episode because you can never quite tell what's going to happen. But I think it's pretty obvious here what's going on. And yeah, just like in any other season, we're down 5-1 at this point, and Raimon is just getting demolished, as usually happens in that opening match. It's mainly through the fault of this Elliot Ember guy. Then we get a little bit more backstory on him, as he actually has a kind of weird scene in the shower talking to Jude Sharp in another cubicle about how you need to keep an attention on Raimon. They've got the Raimon spirit. They're going to be important. They might help you achieve some end goal that we're alluding towards. And, we don't learn much about it, but it's, it gives us a reason to focus on him at the very least. And it's nice to hear Jude Sharp. I wouldn't say see Jude Sharp. We don't see his face. And there's also a scene earlier on where Mark Evans is pictured, but with his face shadowed out, because Adriano had never heard of him. It's like, they're being very secretive with the original Raimon members to say that nothing's actually changed. They're still the same people. The match ends with a 10-1 score, and it has been an absolute demolition job on Raimon, just like we expected. We do get that 10th goal with finally a brand new special move. So we've only seen one special move in the series so far, and that has been Fire Tornado that we're all familiar with, and then Death Zone as well, which again, reanimated but still an existing move. The first brand new one we get is Penguin Volley, a solo backflip shot from Elliot Ember that produces a load of Akihiro Hino's favourite, the Penguins. And I don't know how to feel about this. I love the voice clip. Whenever I've seen the word penguin in any Inazuma game, I just naturally want to say, Penguin Volley! But, yeah, this is the first special move we see from Elliot specifically, so I was kind of waiting to see what his theme would be. His surname is Ember, his kind of visual guise gives off darkness, and then when he does a move, it's just Emperor Penguin number 2, but with a single person. Like, he's still just taking moves from Royal Academy. Is he actually going to have a move that's all his own? Well, I don't know. But that's all he gives us for now. Penguin Volley at least looks good on its own. So the match is over. Some guys in the background were watching. We don't really know what their deal is yet. Something I appreciate is that we now properly learn that Polestar Academy is coached by the Coach Travis, the coach of Inazuma National from Season 3, and probably my favourite character from that season, apart from Jordan Greenway. And so Coach Travis is still one of my favourite characters of all time. And he kind of, points out that Elliot Ember was trying harder than usual, probably because Raimon, unlike other teams he would face all the time, were actually trying to win. Most teams would give up against Polestar Academy. It's a nice little insight from Travis, even if it wasn't tactical genius that they needed to win the match or anything like that. Definitely hoping to see more from Travis as the season progresses. We also get a quick look at someone who definitely doesn't look villainous at all. Ugh. But the episode ends with the Raimon team going to the Tokyo Vista Tower just to look out over the city. And it's at that point you kind of remember, wait, hang on a bit. They were invited to take part in the football frontier under the grounds that they won a match. and they just lost, and we don't know the format for this tournament. Are they just out? Well, apparently not. I can tell you ahead of time it is a round robin format, so they don't have to go home, but at this moment in time they certainly think that's the case because they've been defeated and they also don't have a sponsor. That's remedied pretty quickly though, because the CEO of Island Tours just appears, tells them that they played really well, he enjoyed watching them, and gives them a sponsorship. I wish it was that easy. I've needed some sponsorships for plenty of ventures of mine, like robotics and all of that, and boy, if you could just lose a match 10-1 and get a sponsor for it, then I'd be minted. But here we are in the real world. At least in Inazuma 11, some nice guy is running Island Tours, and well, I hope his business is still going strong now, because he needs to be supporting Raimon as far as we go. It's also worth mentioning again, you know, the whole team were in floods of tears before they got sponsored. They were gutted that they had to go home. Sonny was the first one to do it, and when he started crying, I'm like, is it because of his mum? You know, that's a major thing that's just happened to him. It would be totally natural to have a reaction like that. But it's not. It's just because he lost at football and he has to go home. He like mentions his mum in the line, but it's definitely a secondary thing. It's like, yeah, again, something like this is not minor enough to be a secondary motive. Either make a big deal or just don't have it. I would have definitely preferred the latter, but anyway. Finally, they kind of realised that Mr. Yi's training idea of sending the kids all around the town to do menial tasks like just pushing tyres and cleaning up trash, that actually helped to get them a sponsorship, because it was building their identity within the city of Tokyo and made them likeable when they actually went into the match. So definitely a good bit of thinking from Mr. Yi. We still don't know how powerful he actually is when it comes to football, but in terms of getting financing for the team, he did that well. So that brings the episode to an end. Although we didn't have an intro song, we do have an outro song. And I wonder if maybe we shouldn't. The show ends with a song called "A Girl in Love is the Sign of Rain." And I'm like, right, from the title alone, this is going to be a bit of an adventure, isn't it? And it's always been Inazuma tradition where kind of the intro song is done by a male band. Sometimes it even is sung by, or it's meant to be sung by, members of the Raimon cast, while the outro song is a much more feminine song, which usually is sung by the managers. And Ares keeps this tradition up. But, you know, in the official dubs of the animes, the outro song, yeah, sometimes they do get, you know, just as direct of a translation from Japanese as possible. But then other times, I think they just had, like, normal outros with the same intro song again to cover it up, almost. But, this dub fully translated that Japanese song and even got Aurelia to sing it, which is my favourite part about it, because the accent is brilliant. You know, my thoughts on this song, I secretly like it. It's a guilty pleasure. It's got, you know, the great voice of Aurelia, and once you kind of heard it a few times, you do start jamming along with it somewhat. But the first few times I heard it, I was like, get it away from me. I can't be seen listening to this. And indeed, if I were to just be watching Inazuma 11 Ares on DisneyXD as a kid in the USA, or whoever they were aiming this at, you know, if I was watching my soccer show and then it ends with this really dancey feminine song about a girl falling in love, and what's some of the lyrics again? So it's like just some of the first ones are, I could never have the courage to reveal my heart. My longing to see him is something I can't impart. I could never. I'm a pure girl. Imagine that clip from my mouth being taken out of context. That'd be a tragedy. But boy, if I was like a teenage or younger boy watching that song on DisneyXD after my football show, the second-hand embarrassment would be off the chart. And at the same time, it's such a sharp contrast from the show itself. Even the young girls that it's meant to be targeted at, it probably still feels out of place to them because it's such a weird contrast with everything else in the episode. I like it, but I would never ever watch it in front of someone. It's an experience. But in the comments, let me know what you think of A Girl in Love is the Sign of Rain, along with the rest of episode 2, because I think episode 2 is really, really good. Episode 1 felt very rushed, as it kind of needed to be to keep people's attention, but from episode 2 onwards, we're a lot more relaxed. We can just get to know these characters and what they need to do in their stories, and I enjoyed it from start to finish. So join us for episode 3 and we'll watch some more Inazuma 11 Ares. TTFN.